Today we mourn the death of Terry Hall. Terry Hall was the front man of the Specials and somebody that played a massive part in my youth. I had the opportunity of speaking to BBC Radio Essex today, and I'd like to thank Sonia and the team for having me on there.
9:10 is the time. Good morning, it's breakfast on BBC Essex. Sonia with you for the next 50 minutes till 10. Hope you're well today, 20th of December today. And the world of music's been paying tribute to Terry Hall, who's died at the age of 63. Terry Hall performing for both the Specials and Fun Boy 3. We've been talking about that all through this morning. Now, the Specials formed in the late 70s. About the time they were starting to hit the big time, they performed at Colchester Institute.
5-year-olds knows don't argue!
Now, that was broadcast on the BBC as part of its Rock Goes to College. If you remember that gig, if you were there, let me know. 0800 111 40 41, our number. Paul Maleary joins me now. Paul fronts the Essex band Scarmite and has seen Terry Hall live many, many times, but not that gig at Colchester Institute, I understand. Paul, good morning to you.
Good morning, Sonia. No, my dad wouldn't let me go. You've got to picture this. This is 1979. We've just got Margaret Thatcher's come into government, and there's all these kids. I'm 14 years old, probably really impressionable, and we're all saving our money to buy our tonic suits, our badges, our Slim Jim ties, the whole thing. And it was a grey old time, and the Specials actually brought the daylight back into music for me. They were absolutely fantastic, but my parents wouldn't let me go to that particular gig. They were all my mates up on that stage. They were all my friends. And I was absolutely crestfallen the fact that I wasn't able to go and see this fantastic band. And who knew that they were going to go on to what they did? I mean, they split up early, but when they reformed, they were still magical. They still had, what they had in 1979. Let's put that into perspective. You're talking 43 years ago. So somebody who's in their mid-70s now would have been listening to the Specials, and they're an iconic band, and they still sit as musical geniuses for me.
How did you feel when you heard the news then about Terry?
Oh, I was gutted. Within 5 minutes of seeing it come up on social media feed, I follow the Specials on social media. It was just, I don't know, it was quite surreal. He's only 63, so you look at your own mortality when you get to a particular age, I think. And for me, that was, it was very, very sad. And who knew? They were touring during the summer. It's come about really, really quickly. And it's one of those moments you remember where you were on a particular day, and for me, that's the day. I suppose it's the same with Elvis fans back in 70, whenever. But yeah, I mean, that for me, it's quite, it's quite surreal.
And it's interesting, the specials obviously released a lovely statement talking about him being a wonderful husband and father, kind, funny, genuine soul, all of that. But talked about his voice and his music, his performances, saying that they encapsulated the very essence of life, the joy, the pain, the humour, the fight for justice, mostly the love. There was some fairly strong messages within the lyrics and his performances, wasn't there?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, they were very political. But they were for everybody. You know, they would stand up for everybody's rights. Excuse me. But they were just the way that they wrote their songs. You know, Friday Night, Saturday Morning, Rat Race, Do Nothing. All these types of songs that they wrote themselves are just iconic. And of course, they plagiarised some of the greatest tunes in ska music. Gangsters was a Prince Buster track originally. So they just encapsulated everything that was. They tried to put a balance in. You've got to remember, if you go back to that time, the right wing were in ascendance. The National Front were right up there, and this band were there to combat the bad behaviour of the right wing. And the two-tone movement, which was Elvis Costello and the others, it was actually about the black and white mixing together and bringing communities together, which is exactly what the specials did. You go to Coventry and they're still a huge part. They're the heart of the music in Coventry.
And how much did that influence you then? Because you've gone into forming a ska band yourself. How much would you say the specials played into your music tastes and what you've gone on to do, Paul?
Well, we wouldn't have been a ska band without the specials, without Madness, without the beat, because ska's been around for an awful long time. The popular stuff, if you like, it was only for a very, very short period. So we're singing songs, we're playing stuff that's 40 odd years old. And it's quite surreal because when you look at, you're standing and there'll be a crowd of a couple of hundred people, hopefully. We have played to kids and balloons previously, but if you've got a couple of hundred people, it's like a tennis ball factory. Somebody's dropped a bucket of tennis balls and there's all these old overweight blokes with no hair, not by choice these days. They've actually lost it. They're all bouncing up and down, and it's such a great experience to play the soundtracks of my youth for other people's enjoyment. So Scarmite, we wouldn't be in existence if it wasn't for the fact that the specials were playing.
And Ghost Town, we heard a little snippet of it just sort of coming into this interview. It is one of my favourites just because, the lyrics, the message, but the whole sound of it is just something, it's unique, isn't it? It's such a fantastic, it's just so iconic, isn't it? The moment you hear the first few seconds, that's it. It's like, oh, I love this track. Straight away, it just gives you all the feels.
Absolutely. And for me, the video is absolutely iconic as well. They're driving through Coventry, they're in a car. It brings back so many great memories of being a kid, which I was Jack the Lad then, and I thought I knew everything at 14. But for me, that is a really iconic video. The B-side to that, Friday Night, Saturday Morning, is absolutely superb as well. But they were social historians. They were telling stories through their music, and if you listen to deep down, that's what it actually means. And you can't take them all literal, but they were really passionate about what they did.
Yeah, and I think I was reading the sort of BBC write-up about his death, and obviously Ghost Town was 3 weeks at number one. It's widely regarded as one of the greatest British pop songs. But Terry Hall was saying he found it quite difficult to deal with the success of that, given the message behind that. I suppose it's sort of a conflict, isn't there, when you have quite political, quite messages about society in your lyrics, and then they suddenly do really, really well commercially. It's quite a weird mix, isn't it, of the two things? It
is, but if you look at him, he was an introvert. He never courted any controversy. He really kept himself to himself, his family life. Everything was very private and very personal about him. And it was very difficult. I don't know if you ever saw them, but if you saw them on stage, quite often he'd just be standing there singing with his eyes closed, because whether he was stage struck or what have you, but he encapsulated everything that was good about the late 70s.
Yeah, and so obviously you didn't get to see them at Colchester Institute.
Oh, heartbroken. I watch those videos on YouTube even now, And I still think, well, what might have been? I might have got up on the stage, got into a bit of trouble, and then who knows? I wouldn't have joined the police. I wouldn't do what I do now. So
your parents would have been like, "I told you so."
Oh yeah, exactly right. So my parents probably did me a massive favour by saying no, but. But I remember it taking place, and I remember sitting at home, and I remember when it was broadcast because I was in Ilford at my aunt's house in Mason Crescent in Ilford, and it was on the television there. And it's, I don't know, it just brings back so many great memories. The problem is I'm 57 going on 14 at the moment.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all? So you didn't go to that gig, but you have seen the specials.
I've seen them loads of times.
So what is it like when you go and see them? Because I wasn't fortunate enough to go, but they've been performing, as you said, relatively recently. They've been doing shows, haven't they? Yeah, well, they had a split up, if you like, and then they came back, and they've scaled down over the years and then the drummer passed away, etc., etc. But to go to one of their gigs, Brixton Academy, for instance, you're at the front of this huge crowd at Brixton Academy, and we were literally at the front of the stage. It was absolutely amazing. I've seen them there. I've seen them at Camden. I saw them at Southend Cliffs. It was just absolutely fantastic. And as I say, you're just reliving your youth, and you're trying to grab some of it back. But we now have that opportunity to do it. Whereas years ago, these bands, they got to a certain age and they'd stop touring. Well, of course, you've still got Madness. You've still got what's left of the beat that's out there, and the Selector. It's there. Fantastic. Great to have you on the show, Paul Maleary. From the Essex band Scarmite, seen Terry Hall live many, many times, except not at Colchester Institute in 1979. Not that he's bitter about that. Paul, thank you. Were you there? 0800 111 40 41. If you saw them at that gig, it'd be lovely to hear from you. If not at Colchester Institute, this was sort of on their rise to ascendancy, really. If not there, maybe